Jessica again. It's been a rough week, so I'm kind of just pulling this together now. My brother Travis has been in the hospital for the past few days, although we got some good news that he's off the ventilator and smiled yesterday. I think he might even said a few things to the nurses. So we're looking pretty optimistic right now. Um, in honor of brothers, I wanted to share some stories of some good times and some not so good times I've had with my incredible brothers, five older, in case you didn't catch that. Um, my favorite story is the one where I got shot in the face, so we'll start there. My brother Garrett and I are a few years apart. I was about 9 at this time, he's about 12, and my family being very conservative, loving their guns, they started us early on gun management and training. One day I'm sitting in my dad's bedroom floor and I'm watching a cartoon, and Garrett comes in, one of my brothers, and he picks up his BB gun and he points it at me and he tells me a line I'll never forget. Don't worry, it's not loaded. He proceeds to point the gun at me. I'm, of course, annoyed and telling him to stop. And before I know it, I hear a pow. I turn to look, and just as I do, the bullet enters my face and goes underneath my eyeball, where it remains to this day. We went to the hospital, and they, of course, said that if we tried to remove the bullet, it could blind me permanently. So we opted to just leave it there. Apparently, it just disintegrates on its own. That's how bullets work in your brain. So good to know for me in future use. Um, and the interesting part about this story for me is less the gun that was shot at me and more the emotional reaction after the case. Garrett and I'd never been the tightest of siblings, but after this particular incident, he hated me. I mean, viscerally, from a soul level, hated everything I ever did and said and thought. And it took me a really long time to understand this pain being inflicted on someone else, reverberating back into yourself. It took me a long time to realize that this anger he felt towards me was the anger that he felt towards himself, and that was just being projected onto me because he had never forgiven himself. And in his defense, I had never forgiven him. I was an 8-year old. I didn't know that was something that needed to be done. So, years later, when he's at a party and one of his friends accidentally shoots him in the leg, needless to say, I find this very ironic and a little bit karmic. And he finds his way into a hospital. They tell him they won't remove the bullet because he doesn't have the money for it. And as we all know, you don't get medical services unless you're dying. So the bullet stays in his leg for years, and he becomes angry and he's in pain every day from this. Eventually, he's able to get enough money together. I think the surgery was around $100,000, and he's able to get the bullet removed. A few years after this, he and I start to develop a relationship for the first time in over a decade. We're talking, and it's not just vitriolic hatred. And we start to grow our own type of bond that has never been what it might have been if we hadn't had to go through that together. If we had maybe had the right kind of guidance through that situation so that we could find the peace and the forgiveness in that. But we found something else. We found a hesitant and loving relationship that we honor and that I love today. I don't wish that anything had necessarily been different, but I do wish that I had noticed earlier on that I had all the tools available to me to mend this relationship earlier. I know I could have offered him forgiveness years ago. And it's not that I didn't want to, it's that I think we assume that people think like us. You know, I thought he's 8, or he's 12. It's not his fault. He's not a bad kid. He didn't really do anything wrong. It's that he should never have had that gun available to him in the first place. Certainly not unsupervised. So the idea of offering him forgiveness just seemed silly. I mean, how could he take that on himself as his responsibility? So finally, when I realized what was going on and I did offer that forgiveness, there was such a change in him. He seemed to view everything differently after that. Not just myself, but himself. He got healthier and he got a great job. And to this day, he's out there living life to its fullest. And I think that's really incredible. And I love him. And I love you if you're watching, Garrett. Even with all the drama we've gone through, all the fun times, I think that our relationship today is probably stronger because of the struggle we had to go through. So I'm happy about that. On to the next story. Last story, I promise. I tried to throw a massive kegger at my parents' house when they were out of town. I mean, huge. I wrote flyers. I sent them around to everyone at school. It said free beer. So needless to say, thousands of people were ready to attend my giant, massive party. However, I also asked one of my brothers to buy alcohol for the event. And this turned out to be not a great idea since they told my parents. And the parents who were out of town at the time, and my parents who were out of town at the time, immediately called the police. And the police came to my house, and I had to go, to my aunt's house, and the police had to turn away all of the party guests who had shown up, ready to have a great time. There were so many people that attended that we actually had to put a blockade at the bottom of the street to keep people from being able to just party in the yard because they just really didn't care at that point. And I had bought some, potato chips and things like that. So my legal defense, at least against my parents' accusations of me attempting to throw a party and me having no idea that there was a party going on or why all these people were there, it didn't work since I had bought like some chips and stuff. So I did get, restrictions or whatever you want to call it for the next rest of my life. And I did learn to never throw a party again. And then, I was angry at my brother for a little while, although it seems now looking back that he definitely made the right decision and that I'm probably really, really lucky that he stopped that and just nipped it right in the bud before it had ever happened. I cannot imagine what those thousands of people would have done to my house if I had allowed them in and given them alcohol. So, thank God for small favors, I suppose. Anywho, I hope that you all have an amazing Christmas or whatever holiday it is that you're celebrating or not celebrating. Regardless of any celebrations you may or may not be having, I hope that you tell your family you love them. I hope that you show someone some forgiveness. I know that even through, all of this that's been going on, being locked in my house, I've still found ways to hurt other people and to be hurt by other people. So I do, forgive people as often and as much as I possibly can. And I find that I'm a happier person because of it. So thanks, guys. I love you. Shooting this for bloopers because apparently when I'm a complete emotional wreck, I shoot perfect videos. So this is for bloopers. Love you all. Hey internet, it's Erica. Quite a week. My brother was in the hospital. He was really, really sick and he managed to pull through and he's much better now. Hey internet, it's Erica again. Quite a week. My brother was fighting for his life in the hospital. Fortunately, we got news yesterday that he's taken a turn for the better. Weird. Hey, Internet, it's Erica. Quite a week. Hey, Internet, it's Erica again. What a week, huh? Most of you who know me know that my brother was in the hospital the past few days. He got out. Hello, Internet friends. This is Erica, back again.